Thought about changing this session to just performance.
Why does AI fall in love?
Why? I can't
So,
sing.
my name is Brett Leonard, and I'm here to talk about a little bit of my journey with the concept of AI as primarily a storyteller, because that's primarily what I am, a cinematic storyteller for most of my career. And now I am moving very strongly into virtual story worlding, as I like to call it, with my company, Virtuosity. I'm the CCO of that company. My partner, David Goldman, who's one of the co-founders, Scott Ross is the other co-founder, is here, is going to be giving a talk right after this about representing AI characters and talent. So, because he's been an Uber agent from Hollywood, and so that's a very interesting talk to have as well. But my journey began as a kid in Toledo, Ohio, reading science fiction, of course. And you know, I then moved to Santa Cruz, California, and happened to land in the middle of a group of people that included Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak and people like Greg Panos here, who was one of the great pioneers of the thought forms of this area. You know, there's a lot of us that were doing this VR stuff and AI stuff in terms of really imagining the future back then in the late 80s, early 90s. And as a young filmmaker who was barely 20 at that time, it stimulated my thought form. I saw this thing, but this guy, Jaron Lanier, showed me at the Cyberthon, which is a 24-hour thing. You'd stay up and do a lot of drugs and do a lot of cyber stuff in San Francisco. And that...
Tell me more, Brett.
Yeah. AI and drugs go together very well. So... nothing hard. Anyway, so I got this idea I had to make a movie about it because I saw the cinematic potential of showing virtual reality to a greater degree than what it was able to do at that time. And no one knew the term then. It was a very, cloistered term. So when I made The Lawmnmower Man and sort of got that term out there and popularized the concept for popular culture, it started me on this journey of figuring out what the hell real artificial intelligence and virtual reality were going to be, because it was a story of that. It was a story of a man becoming data. It was a story of the different ethical aspects of that. Is that a positive thing? Is it evolution? Is it de-evolution? And those are the things that still fire me from a mythopoetic standpoint to this day. I then played around with Peter Gabriel on a number of things, including putting the SwarmCam fusion station on the road with his WOMAD tour, where we had something called the HOTS system. And does anyone know what that is? The HOTS system, it was an amazing, Jimmy Hotz, an incredible pioneer who had this AI music system where a family could come into this tent. We had the SwarmCam, which is like 50 cameras tied into this fusion station, which was all these toasters and consumer or prosumer video switchers, and they could create an immersive media experience as a family ritual together. We had 5-hour lines around the clock in every festival city. Mom would go up and play a Metallica guitar solo on the HOT system while Dad was playing with the fusion station. And what it showed me as I watched these in every festival city this go through, I realized that empowering people to create is one of the greatest things that all of this is about. It is not only the most commercial thing that it will make it work from a market standpoint, it's also a very positive thing from a human standpoint. And I believe that AI needs to be something that stimulates the empowerment of creation. Because if that happens, then it's a partnership with AI and humanness, not just a slave-master relationship, whichever way that goes. So I think that moving those things, telling stories of that, and then as I got into looking at making virtual immersive worlds, I realized that there's going to be a tremendous amount of AIs necessary to actually do the kinds of things that I was thinking of in this theory I have called narrative magnets. By the way, Anne, your thought form, you are one of the great inspirations to me, and I look forward to working with you. The way you think is unbelievable. And by the way, I'm just going to say this. I've been saying it out there, and everyone thinks, oh, he's just saying this to make a thing. I believe women understand this stuff better than men.
No,
I do. I just do. And I think that these need to essentially be feminine mediums, whether you're in a male body or a female body. I mean, that's not the point. But because of a lot of different issues, but there's not enough time to go into that right now. So in my journey, indicative of AI and showbiz, this young man here, Ryan Sheffer, was someone I found as an editor for a project I had called Hole in the Head, which is the first documentary I ever did. And I found out how documentary filmmaking is the hardest thing to do in the world. Okay, I mean, it makes making a big feature film that you have a script for look like cake. So he went on a journey with me with this film, which actually won a lot of awards and is one of the most impactful things I've ever done. And we got to know each other very well, became family. And as we were talking, we started talking about these issues of AI and how this is going to mix with cinematic language. And so our story is kind of indicative of showbiz connecting to AI because, Ryan, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, hi. So Brett taught me a lot of what I know about creative work. A lot of what I know about editing I actually learned from Brett, even though he hired me as an editor. And core to that was a discussion of how when you create a film, it's quite mechanized. And we talked a bit about this. I don't know if you guys saw us up here. Don't want to be too redundant. But suffice to say that I became pretty obsessed with turning myself into a series of algorithms. And, you know, how do you create I guess that's kind of what your movies are about.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not there yet. It's not you know, complete sentience. We're not talking about generalized intelligence that some people are doing great work with here. I specifically was interested in what's the process of making video content. Like if I'm hired, I think I can make 4 videos a day, right? And I'm not talking about a movie. I'm talking about the stuff you see on social media. So how could we just make those automatically, distribute them, and make them at scale? Because if it doesn't take people, you can make tons of them. So Zero Slant is my company. We do automated news videos. These videos, the way it works is we recognize trends happening on social media and on the internet, and we grab all the content created in the trend. We run analysis on that content, and we choose how to put together a video, and we distribute it. We make thousands and thousands of videos, and we only have a 3-person team. We do millions of views at this point, and it's still in beta, 6 months old since we released our first video. And it's just the beginning. The next step, and the thing that really gets Brett excited, is a system where you're going to be able to input singular words or keywords directly, you know, into effectively a search bar, and the robot will just make content for you. And we're not talking about singular videos. We're talking about making many variants, like thousands of potential outcomes, and then being able to collaborate with the bot to make the idealized piece of content.
And you know, the thing that makes Zero Slant a unique piece of AI and of code is because Ryan is a brilliant filmmaker first. He was that first, and so that's informing his. I mean, I said, you know, if a young filmmaker like you learned how to code, I think I said at one point while we were, you know, crying through this documentary because it was an incredibly emotional experience.
Literally crying.
You ever see it, you'll understand what I'm saying. You know, that would be a really modern filmmaker, and damn it, he went out and did it. And he's blown my mind with what he's created. And it is, for me, I had a thing called Is TV, which is pre-YouTube. I actually was one of the things I think inspired YouTube, in all honesty, that I thought there would be an expert layer being able to help people create compelling cinematic language that could express their life. As a matter of fact, now I have another startup company with my son, Shannon Leonard, called Keyframe, which we want to license Zero Frame, and we issued a press release today because we're going to be working together, our companies, on a lot of different things, because this, to me, is a foundational technology that allows the expression in a language. It's like a word processor of cinematic language that will allow us to truly have an evocative way of giving out what we're calling life streams, which is being able to cinematically express what your life is. And that is a generational thing. It also gets past the Tower of Babel of all the, the written and verbal languages of the world. And I think there's a beautiful thing that could happen there. Also, in the context of VR, immersive worlds, whether it's web VR or full immersive narrative, multi-participant story worlds like we're making at Virtuosity, video is going to be still a big part of it. And we have to have a tremendous amount of video created in order to fill these persistent procedural worlds. I mean, it's not something that's going to be able to happen with the 1935 process of production that we're all still mired in the film business, in the video business. So we have to move to something completely new and different, combining with the kinds of things that Ann is talking about. And then we start to get this amalgam that is going to be truly discovery of something that is new.
So I like to think of it in terms of photography. And I'm sure there's art historians. I'm not an art historian, so I apologize. I'm gonna fuck this up. But the gist is that we used to paint things that were happening, right? And then we all of a sudden could photograph them, and painting became just art, right? In the painting today, the last painting I bought was an abstract pigeon. It was not photorealistic. I do not actually like pigeons. I just thought it was beautiful, right? I think we're in a similar process when it comes to video creation. Like, we've been in this old process. I don't think that the epic Steven Spielberg type movies are going to go away.
No.
But you're already seeing the fact that they're fewer and further between. And I've not currently looked at what an editor coming out of university today, the jobs they're trying to get, but I guarantee you it's make another video about recipes on Facebook that's like a square and it's like, chili rellenos or whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about? Your Facebook feed's filled with these videos of food. That's what the editors are doing, right? So my belief is that a lot of the content that we're making, it isn't art necessarily. It's more factual. It's algorithmic in nature, and therefore we can automate it.
It's indicative of every language starts as an art form. So cinema starts as an art form. It's been around a very small amount of time. It's becoming a ubiquitous language, and when it becomes a language, there's a whole other pivot that happens in the zeitgeist, and that's started to happen. But people still need to understand some things that film school could give them, but they're not all going to go to film school, and yet they're all going to make content. We've got content creation devices in our pocket, and that's going to continue. So we need this ability to automate aspects of the language so we can truly express what is possible with the human imagination.
Question, Brett.
Yeah.
If in your vision, do you see that the young people wanting to make videos, they're not going to go to film school, so they're going to be aided by a bot?
They're going to be aided by a bot, and there's going to be a true collaboration that's kind of frictionless and seamless and fun, and even sensual with this AI idea and emotional, and that's the key thing: emotional engagement with AI. We keep talking about these things because it comes from the tech sector, a little cold, a little clinically. The truth is, all of this is about human emotional engagement of the mind, of the body, of all of it. I think VR has got to be that, or we're in trouble. So one of the things is that it's important to know what real AI is and what sort of fake AI is. Talk a little bit about that, Ryan, because Ryan, you have a very unique perspective on what's out there.
Yeah, I'll dig into that. I wanted to step on one thing real quick, which is that I think that sticking to how cold AI can be, it actually makes sense because it's way harder for it to be warm.
That's right.
So as it stands right now, I'm talking about a system where you input text, like literally there's nothing colder than google.com, right? And it's a very similar type experience. So I do think there's a lot of interest, and I'm sure a lot of people here, like from the film industry, how do we make it warmer?
Exactly.
On the topic of what's real AI versus fake AI, everyone has a different opinion, right? Is it AI if you simply take a computer and you make it do something that people used to do, or do you need to have these sort of, deep learning systems or the like? I don't actually claim to know, but I do know that it's so hot to say you're AI that you have things like that trailer for the movie Morgan, where basically Watson just saw these are the scenes that made people get out of their seat, which I believe was data that was manually grabbed, and then use that to choose which shots to edit in.
Right.
That's pretty weak. So I guess that we're at the early stages, and like I said, the content we make, which is completely, and this means from beginning through end, it comes up with the conception of the idea for the video all the way through distribution. I describe it as a self-driving car still crashing into a wall. It's a video, it's on its own, it's completely made, but it's going to be bad because it takes time to learn, just like it takes time. Your first movie sucked, I guarantee it.
Absolutely.
Not like feature film, I mean like the thing you made when you were 6 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, as a matter of fact, it's interesting how I learned then is I took a Kodak Instamatic camera that had, the Super 8 cartridge, and I learned how to edit in the camera because I hated Super 8 splicing as a child. It was like, it's horrible. And then I learned efficiency of editing by doing that, by making all the wrong choices, doing a lot of cartridges and having to get the money to process them somehow. And that process forced me into an efficiency that was essentially a learning loop. That's the same kind of learning loop that has to happen with AI.
And I think that's really crucial to recognize is the fact that, for a while I still hate our videos videos we make, and I didn't want to release them. And the reason I didn't want to release them is because the creative in me said they're junk. The problem with that is that you actually have to have data in order to improve. Right. Where we can watch our videos, we can say they suck. The system actually has to have data, and that's viewership, that's engagement. So without actually pushing out content, even if it's garbage, our systems that are learning to be video creators aren't going to get better. And, you know, I think that, you know, I wanted to hear Ann actually speak more about the data having bias, because that's crucial as well. Yes. Because you have to know where the data comes from. And if the way that you're trying to teach your AI to make videos is you're judging it, that's pretty crummy data. Right. And I actually found that for us, judging it based on viewership's crummy. The worst videos would get views. And I was just like, I don't want us optimizing for this. But then at the same time, you're like, but maybe that makes money. And you're like, oh, crap. Like,
you know, and the same is indicative of VR, because VR, you know, everyone's in this demo phase and trying to make the demo that'll change the world. As soon as you make the demo, it's obsolete because of the nature of the process. That's why fast, iterative VR, like web VR, where we're able to get the strum and drang of actual human interaction in something that's quick and dirty VR, is an incredibly important tool for us to figure out what the human nature of this interaction is really going to be. And so I'm working with web VR groups that are doing that, living that as a lifestyle, and it's an amazing process. It's the most fun I'm having in VR, is at the lowest end of VR because of that. And so in a sense, all of that data is going to inform the AI that drives true multi-participant, interactive, procedurally generated persistent story worlds, which is my, you know, great dream. And that's really where I'm going. But without that first step, without that interaction with humans, we can't be an isolated bubble in this industry. We have to engage people and be, you know, be aware of throwing out what's bad first and allowing it to be interacted with. That process cannot be overstepped. Yes.
Do it.
Yeah.
Well, I just was wondering where you draw the line between entertainment and teleportation or virtual working and experiences.
I don't, because I think we're literally blurring those lines of between.
Do you think that we need to?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's an interesting that's a long conversation too. It's
very interesting question.
It's like as we create alternate realities that are experiences that are entertainment, do you have to define it? Because it's all false at that point.
Yeah.
And well, now we're getting into whether the world's false, but anyway, that's very cool.
Yeah.
I was just digging the irony of arguing about whether something the word artificial in its name is real.
That's so true. I mean, you look, what really is artificial? I mean, nothing. It turns out, what is unnatural?
Yeah. And
I mean, we're on a natural world. I mean, unless it's dropping from some unnatural dimensional space from, I mean, there's nothing unnatural going on. It's all coming from us, the natural world. I mean, there's, you know, that idea, these sort of boundaries of the human consciousness are so being challenged by these new mediums. And the more we push against that, the more we actually think outside those boundaries, the more we're going to discover something astonishing and new.
And can we take questions, or we have to get off the stage?
No,
Okay.
keep on going. We
Yeah.
got at least
I
5
saw the
minutes.
rap thing, and I don't want to. I don't like breaking rules.
I love breaking rules.
I know.
There was a big dispute over what was artificial reality and what was augmented reality. And the pioneer Myron Kruger had artificial reality as his coined term.
Yes.
And then virtual reality was sort of affably created by Jaron Lanier.
Exactly.
By accident.
Yes.
Virtual reality is what stuck.
And I'm astonished because I had to force New Line Cinemas to put the term virtual reality in the trailer to the Lawmnmower Man. I mean, literally had to like get LaFontaine, the great voiceover narrator, you know, in the dream, that guy, and literally brought him in to say the words virtual reality, and we cut it into the trailer, and you know, because they said, what the hell is that? I mean, they really hated it at the marketing people, and you know, and now the fact it's still called that is to me completely ironic and strange, to tell you the truth. But go ahead. Yeah.
On your system that self-creates, goes out there and picks it up, and
Yeah.
does it decide that now owns it, or does it say, I got those 3 shots?
It always points back to the original creator. Our actual goal with the content, and we find that this serves our purpose and other people's purpose, is to call out the creators of the content and drive traffic to them. And we've had a couple people request to have their content removed from our assets, which we automatically do. But for the most part, everyone's like, "Ah, cool, my stuff's in a thing."
But to think there's not going to be new boilerplate and new law around this, it is going to
No,
be.
yeah, totally. It's an area of gray, right?
Yeah,
in the
we
law.
need those young lawyers out there that want to jump into this because not many of the older lawyers want to. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's important what we're doing. All right. Thank you,
Great
everybody.
fireside chat, guys. Thank you.